This podcast was brought to you by Meros cryptocurrency. Meros is a cryptocurrency payment system that does what cryptocurrency originally intended to do. Be a practical and secure form of direct payment, Meros utilizes the best of current technology in a powerful new way. It introduces a groundbreaking consensus mechanism called merit caching. This enables Meros to be both feeless and instant while maintaining the same level of integrity of traditional networks like Bitcoin. To find out how you can participate in the future of crypto payments, go to meroscrypto.io now.
Hello and welcome to the January 2020 update of State of the Project Meros. With me, your host Cryptosi, and as ever, the enigmatic Kayaba. Kayaba, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back as always. Just a really great show with a lot of great stuff to talk about.
Yes, it is. And this is, I guess it's like our 14th episode, 13th or 14th. So last month we reached our 1 year anniversary. This month we're ushering in a new year, January by the time you hear this. And it's actually the third year that Meros has been in existence, I guess. It started in 19. So this is actually Meros' third year of existence.
The third year it's been present in. It hasn't been alive for... It hasn't had 3 years of time behind it. But yes, this is the third year it's present in.
Yes. Yeah.
Like to very clearly make that distinction.
Just in case people, okay, fair enough. Right, so I've got a bunch of questions to ask, and I'm going to try to keep us within our 30-minute planned schedule, as we always overrun. We are considering not only moving to video in the future, but also moving to 45-minute episodes. That has become quite a hot debate between Kayaba and myself. But anyway.
Like how you say move to 45 minutes when we've kind of already just been doing it. And I kind of like our existing format. I think we deliver a lot of content. I think it's well-paced, and I really feel like I get to talk about what's relevant because you ask questions about what's relevant and you do a really good job of writing your questions. So I've been really happy with what we've discussed, how it's paced, and the timing of it. So I don't see any reason to change it, which means we keep doing 45 minutes. But that's just my opinion.
Well, the only part of all of that you said that I heard was that I'm amazing. So I will take that as a compliment, as I know they're very hard to get out of you. And I'll treasure that. So thank you, Kayaba. First thing I want to speak about is Nimble Test. I know what NIM is. I'm hoping that Nimble Tests are related, but could you tell us what are Nimble Tests and why are you conducting them?
Right. So Nimble is NIM's package manager. This really, I think, became a popular thing with Python, where if you wanted to download a library, it used to be where you had to go online, download the source, and place it in your project. Or if you're using it in a few places, you would place it in your system and refer to it from your project. Package managers say, you run this command, package manager install library, and it finds the location of the library, it downloads it, and it installs it on your system. So no matter what code base you're working with, you can have access to that package. And of course, they're implemented a few different ways. Not all work exactly like that. But that's the basic idea behind Nimble. You enter the name of some NIM code you want to use in your project. It downloads it, puts it on your system, and then any NIM projects you have from there on can use it. So we use several Nimble packages, with most of them being our own. Because when I write, when I wrapped an ED25519 library, I created a Nimble package for it. When I wrapped Argon, I created a Nimble package for it. When we started using WebView, I created a Nimble package for it. It's just a very nice way to keep things in the proper place, just properly organized, stored, and make accessible from other projects. And So the Nimble test, they're tests run by the Nimble package manager. So that doesn't really mean a lot. It's really just saying when you run Nimble Test, or whatever the command will end up being, it starts executing the tests. And that's nifty. It's definitely a useful feature to have, don't get me wrong. But the real focus of the pull request named Nimble Test is moving the existing tests to unit test 2. So right now, the tests are very basic. All of them are imported into a single file, and they're just run 8 at a time. As in, we spawn 8 different threads, and we run 8 tests in parallel until we're done with the tests. So NIM offers a much more refined solution to this called unit test, where you can distinctly define the test, give them proper names, and basically say, only run this test, only run this group of tests, and do proper configuration. And unit test 2 is a community package that sort of evolves it. So the point of this Nimble Test branch is to move the test from this custom test harness, which is not that high quality, to a proper library for it. And they will then be run from within by Nimble.
And what exactly is being tested? Is it testing that the correct commands are being downloaded? What exactly is being tested?
So with Nimble Test, we're not testing Nimble, to be clear. We're not working... Nimble's just the executor of the tests, in this case.
Right, okay.
So when we're discussing the Meros NIM test, a lot of them is about reproducibility and accuracy.
Right.
Reproducibility being, if I do the same thing 10 times, I get the same answer 10 times.
Right.
If I create a random object, serialize it as if I'm sending it over the network, and then parse it back as if I just received it, I get back the same object.
Right.
If I do X with the blockchain, X is properly recorded. And if I then reload the blockchain, X is still there.
Right. Okay. Right. Because by the sound of the name, it did make me think that Nimble was actually the subject of the test, which is not actually. Okay. Right. Okay. So these, for those who don't know, who are new to the podcast, in the description there will be a link to the GitHub, which is where this content is coming from. We're basically discussing things that are in the GitHub. The GitHub is where all of the software is housed, I guess, and you can see it being updated in an almost real-time fashion. So the person who was conducting these Nimble tests, or the person who's put forward the pull request, is it's a new character called JRomero. Now, I've done a small bit of research from what I can gather, what he's linked to his actual GitHub account. But Kayaba, who is JRomero, and where did he come from, and what is his role within Meros currently? So
his nickname on Discord is Jar013. And he joined the Meros server 3 weeks ago. I had never met him before then. And he just really came out swinging. He started talking about going to work. He said he appreciated the idea behind Meros. He really wanted a cryptocurrency functional as a currency that can take the challenges of tomorrow as they come. I sent him our website because of the main quote on it, with the main quote being, sorry, I'm pulling up the page just so I can be the exact quote, just so I can say the exact quote. Meros is an entirely new cryptocurrency specifically designed to enable secure payments. Here. Meros provides superior tech for a truly feasible currency, focusing only on elements that improve the currency itself. That last part about improving the currency itself, he said it really resonated with him, which I'm happy to hear it's getting out there.
Yep.
So he joined 3 weeks ago, and he just started saying, how can I help? And he initially was talking about doing work on the GUI, specifically of mobile app for Meros,
right,
which would definitely be a great thing to have. But my personal priority is making sure the desktop software is there and ready.
Yeah.
And we were discussing that, and he started looking around, trying to get caught up with the code base, and he noticed our Nimble packages. A few of them, 3 of them, if I recall correctly, had to have setup done. As in, once you use the Nimble package manager to download them, you actually have to run additional commands to make sure they're ready.
Uh-huh.
And he said, this can be done automatically. We could just have these automatically built. And it's not something I'd put time into before, and he went out and he wrote the scripts to do it. And now if you just run the Nimble command, they automatically build and are ready to use. And then he started looking over our testing structure. He said, we should use a proper testing lib for this. So he started working on a proper testing lib. So he's really been getting caught up with the code base recently, and it's really something I'm truly appreciative of. He's really popped out of nowhere, but he's quickly become someone I can rely on to make sure the code base is going to be quality and easily accessible to other developers.
Do you know anything about his history within crypto, or like how, in particular, how he came to find out about Meros, and how do these sorts of developers who are willing to immediately volunteer their time, how do they find out about projects like Meros?
So I asked him what his history in crypto was. And if I recall correctly, I believe he said he ran a faucet at one point. But he said he's not that into crypto. He does some work around it, and he's interested in it, of course. But his main job isn't cryptocurrency related. And I honestly don't remember how he even found the server in the first place, which kind of makes this all the more out of nowhere. And it's something that I've been thankful for recently.
It is really good. Hopefully, if he hangs around and keeps on contributing, we can get him on the show at some point. I guess it'll be good to hear from him himself how he found the project and what led him down this path. Okay,
of course he will be receiving part of the pre-mine for his work. Anyone that contributes to the project, whether it be through development, marketing, media, really not that picky, contribution's a contribution, and it's something I'm appreciative of, is going to receive part of the pre-mine.
Awesome.
So I guess he's definitely going to be included in that.
Yeah, I do doubt if that was one of his incentives, one of the reasons why he joined. But for other people who may be listening and thinking,
knew when he started offering to help.
Exactly. Which is it's so good to see. One of the good things about open source software is that people can just join, have a look, see if there's something they can improve, and then just improve upon it, which is great. Right, I wanted to move on to issues. I do love looking at these issues. This one was, it calls itself transmitting elements with non-existent holders can cause an out of bounds memory. Now, I have almost no idea what that means. Could you tell me, Kayaba, what is the problem and how do you intend to fix it?
Right. So we have merit holders.
Mm-hmm.
And in the recent upgrade we did, the no consensus net branch, it's interesting to hear how we're still talking about that after a month or two by now. One of the changes we made was we nicknamed holders. As in, the first merit holder who gains merit becomes holder 0. The second becomes holder 1. Third becomes holder 2. So on, so on. And every time they want to do something on the network, they no longer say, here's my public key, which is 96 bytes. They say, here's my nickname, which is solely 2 bytes. And it really just saves a lot of space. Now, to actually get the public key so we can verify it, we can't say, here's a nickname, here's the signature. No, we have to say, here's a public key, here's the signature. We go to a lookup, which basically says, give me a nickname, I'll give you a public key.
Uh-huh.
And the way we've implemented it is an array. Actually, quite functional. I'm not really concerned about the memory issues based on the way it's implemented, because traditionally, if you have an array like this, there are concerns. But no, we've handled that. Just want to say that now. And with an array, let's say you have an array of 10 elements. If you ask for the 11th, it will still try to get you the 11th element, and it will get you whatever is after 10. So when it gives you whatever is after 10, that can be nothing, just all 0. That can be random data. It can be data from something else. Or it can error out and crash your program. So Nim does have checks for this, where Nim will say, oh, you went too far, error. And it will still crash the program, of course, but it won't do anything messy like read random data.
Yep.
But even the fact that it crashes the program is not acceptable. We need to properly screen that when we get it, so you can't just crash a random node by sending a message.
Okay.
And we do have ways to work with that. We're just not fully implemented everywhere.
So that's along the lines of how you intend to fix it, is with the Nim checking it, and then
we'll probably just write a function to access it. So you can only access it through the function, and if the function detects you went too far, it errors out. Because the Nim check for it, it considers it fatal. And I believe right now you can still handle fatal errors, but there's a plan. So if a fatal error is thrown, it's thrown. You can't recover from it. So if we left it to Nim, it would still be a program crash. So our plan is to, I think my plan is going to be write a custom accessor, which means, oh, you can't just get to the array, you have to ask me for it, and I'll verify you're asking for something valid. Else I'll raise an error which is actually handleable.
Yeah. Sounds like about 10 minutes work for you. Is that about accurate?
It's not the worst. You just have to be careful about passing around the accessor so everyone who needs access can get it.
All right. Okay. The word of the month, let's call it. It's all over the code base this month. Before we started recording, we did have a set to on how you pronounce this. I'm going to go with Milagro. You were saying it was Milagro, but
like a civilized person.
Yes, well, I'm the Englishman, so I've got seniority here. So with Milagro, could you tell us what is it, and why have you decided to add it to the Meros codebase?
This podcast has been brought to you by Rhubarb Media. Rhubarb Media are the branding specialists behind successful crypto projects such as PivX, Vendible, and Libertaria. The Rhubarb style is both loved and respected the world over. So if you want your project to appeal to techies and everyday users alike, give Rhubarb Media a try. You cannot possibly be disappointed. Link is in the description.
So Milagro is a BLS library. So BLS is one of the signature schemes we use. Signature scheme being, you have a private key, you have a public key, you have a signature. Anyone with a signature, or anyone with your public key and a signature, can verify it came from your private key. So there's a few of them out there, and BLS is one of them. But it has a really nice property where if you get 2 public keys and 2 signatures, you can just add them together. You can add together the public keys, you can add together the signatures, and the public keys are added together to create a new public key. And the signatures are added to create a new signature. And if the signatures were of the same message, the new signature will verify for that message against the new public key. It's called aggregation. And it basically means you can take any signature and you can combine them, and you can save space, save some speed, or you can form a multisig. So we don't use its multisig attributes. What we use it for is to save speed and space. Meros vote staples, which means every time a vote is received, we save it to disk. And that quickly becomes very expensive. But thanks to BLS, every 10 minutes, we can take all the signatures and compress it down to a single 96 bytes. So we've previously used Chia's library, CHIA. They're working on their own blockchain. It's kind of like Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin with a new scripting language. Personally, I don't see that much of an interest, personally. But I did appreciate their BLS library because it was a very nice library to use from a point of ease.
Mm-hmm.
You could get right in there. They cleanly presented it, and I appreciated that. That said, it already off the bat it has some intricacies about how it handled data, and we required a one-line edit for it to work within NIM, which was unfortunate. So, over time, Shia presented itself as an option that didn't give us the fine-tuned control we wanted. And it didn't give us some of the needed functionality. So one of the things you can do with BLS is you can swap what's used for signatures with what's used for public keys. So one has to be 48 bytes and one has to be 96 bytes. But it doesn't matter which. You can have 96-byte public keys or you can have 96-byte signatures. So since we nicknamed public keys to always be 2 bytes, we want the public keys to be 96 bytes. Unfortunately, Shia was set up the other way around, and it didn't really give us the tools we needed to remedy that. So we moved to Milagro, which was a more in-depth library, which required a lot more work to set up and get going properly, which required us do our own security checks here and there, because it allows us to save a lot of space. I think verifications got 33% smaller because of this. And it just also gives us a bit better speed along the way. So it's really just about optimizations and flexibility.
When you talk about signatures, and this is kind of going back a little bit, are Snore signatures and BLS signatures compatible? Competitive? Is it a choice between one or the other? And kind of like what I really want to get to is, why did you choose BLS in the first place over any other signature schemes? We may have covered this in another episode, actually.
I don't think so, but I think I have covered it in general, just not on the podcast. Happy to answer it, actually. It's a great question.
Yeah.
So, Snore, I believe, can be done with ED25519, which is the signature scheme we use for transactions, because we don't need that. We don't need the signature space savings. Whereas with votes, we have 10 people creating one vote each for a single transaction, so it really does add up quickly. And of course, 10 people is a rather centralized option. We're aiming for hundreds. So with Snore, they do offer signature similar properties in that you can have 10 people join together and agree to a message and produce a single signature as the outcome.
Yeah.
But the difference is Snore is interactive. So if you want to combine 10 people's signatures, you have to get them all talking. You have to say, hey, I want to create a signature with you and these 9 other people to do X. Then they all have to agree. Then you all have to create the signature together. You can't just say, these 10 people created a signature for the same thing. Let's combine them. No, you have to be online, be present, be participating. And because of that, it can't always be used if you want to have full inclusiveness. You're always going to be hitting a percentage. So even though Snore represents a faster option, it's more complicated to perform over the network, and it isn't always viable.
So what are the benefits of Snore over BLS? Because I'm not sure, I'm not certain, but I'm quite sure that Bitcoin themselves are thinking more about Snore than they are about BLS. Why do you think that is?
Snore can be done over the same signature curve. So beyond signature schemes, which say how to craft the signature, we have curves, which are a set of parameters. So curve SECP 256K1, which is what Bitcoin uses, may have XYZ, while ED 255.9 will have a BC, and BLS will have DEF for their variables. And of course, it does get more involved than that. That's just a simplification. But Snore can be done over the curve SECP 256K1. Or it can be done over the curve used by ED 25519. So because of that, Bitcoin doesn't really have to make a lot of changes for Snore to be supported. I believe any change to involve BLS would be a hard fork or would be a very debatable soft fork.
Okay.
Like I think you can use Snore signatures with the existing Bitcoin protocol, is my point.
Yes. Yeah,
Whereas if you did BLS, it would be completely up to the miners on, is this a valid BLS signature, which is kind of against the tenets of Bitcoin. And besides that, Snore is a faster algorithm.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you. I didn't have those questions planned, but very, very, very interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Kayaba. This next question, this one threw me a little bit. So I was trawling around through GitHub, and I came across what looked like a very, very small deal. It was in the MC_ED25519 repo, which you literally was just speaking about. The commit was to enable the C backend. Now, the reason why this threw me is because unlike most of the commits you do, there was very little as far as a description here within this commit. So what is this about? Is this as small a deal as it seemed to be to me? And what am I missing?
Right, so NIM has multiple backends, meaning it can compile your NIM code to C code, it can compile it to C++ code, compile it to JavaScript even. So we used to use the C++ backend. And the reason for using that was because Chia, the BLS library we used to use, was a C++ library. So the cleanest way to integrate it was use the C++ backend.
Yep.
And because of that, when we were working on our ED25519 library, or a wrapper around a C library, to get the C library working with the C++ code base, we had to write some extra code for it. In this extra code, because it was always on, did break C support. So the library was only for C++, yet that was fine because we only use C++. And to be clear, these libraries are clearly labeled Meros Crypto. They're libraries, so if anyone else wants to use them, they're welcome to use them, but they're clearly identified for use by Meros, and they'll always be for Meros. If Meros needs to change, these libraries will change to accommodate Meros. But anyway, so the reasons we also switched to the C++ backend, back when the question was, how do we get Chia integrated, was because C++ offered some benefits to the compiled code just when it comes to cleanliness, readability, and it had another nifty feature called zero-cost exceptions. In C++, when you raise when there may be an exception raised, when you go into what's called a try-catch statement, which basically says, try doing this, but if there's an error, handle it. If no exception is raised in C++, it won't cost you any performance. It will be the same exact speed as if you didn't try to catch it in the first place. It's only when an exception is raised and you do catch it do you take a performance hit, because you're doing a different execution. You're executing different instructions. So that was another advantage. That said, zero-cost backends zero-cost exceptions have a downside. When they are raised, they're extra expensive. So you only actually save time if they're not frequently raised. And the way Meros is written, we frequently raise exceptions. It's just our way of handling errors.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, it kind of ended up being more of a detriment than a benefit. So when we went to work on Milagro, I could not get it to work with C++. I tried a lot of things to get it working. But it always just had some obscure error in some location. So because of that, I was like, okay, so what if we move Meros to C? And then I remembered the main reason we had it as C++ was to support the BLS library Milagro was replacing. So it kind of just all worked out.
Okay, so effectively, it is, although it's a small change, it is quite a big change. It will be present all over the project. It's just that I didn't spot it in other places. Is that accurate?
Well, the way NIM works is you can specify the backend whenever you want. So when you run a NIM command, it's NIM. Traditionally, it's NIM-C source file, and that uses the C backend. But if you type NIM-CPP, that uses the C++ backend. So all we had to do is in our config files that detail how to build Meros, we just said use C instead of C++.
Okay, right.
So it was only just a few lines to the configuration here and there. The ED25519 library, though, had code which made it only work for C++. So we had to edit a couple lines to re-enable C.
Right, okay, gotcha. Right, let's move away from coding now. My head is starting to hurt. Marketing discussions. As we get closer and closer to the anticipated release date of Meros, we are going to have to start discussing marketing. I know it's not the number one thing that you enjoy doing, but who do you think Meros will be aimed at? And when do you intend to start advertising it?
Really, the aim for Meros has always been anyone who wants to make a digital transaction without a centralized institution. We've always tried to build the best currency possible. Not the best smart contract platform, not the best IoT platform, not the best platform for digital kittens, but the best currency possible. Which means there's no central organization. You control your funds. We don't take bank holidays. It's always available. And you can actually make transactions. You don't have to wait an hour. You don't have to spend multiple dollars in fees. You can just do what you need to do. And it's kind of a vague and lofty goal to say Meros is for anyone who needs to make a digital transaction. Of course, there's the issue of getting people to support Meros, to accept Meros, so on and so on. I'm not trying to say overnight we're going to become the global payment solution. But our goal has always been to be the best option for digital payments. When it comes to marketing, we've actually been talking about marketing a lot recently, and I'm hoping to start getting some marketing done within the next few weeks.
Will you be doing this yourself, or have you got other people within the community that are beginning to step forward to handle these sorts of things?
I am not a marketer. It's just really not my thing. So yes, I've been talking with others about getting the marketing done.
Awesome. Okay, right. We are on to the last question. The question which I ask you every month. It keeps on coming back like a bad dream. Release date. I know you don't like to give an exact date, but how close do you think we are now?
So I think I've talked about the eternal 3 months before on the podcast, where I've consistently said 3 months away, 3 months away, 3 months away. And I think we might finally be out of that. Finishing up data difficulties pretty soon, like within a couple days, we should have adjustable data difficulty, which means if Meros is having a spam attack, it can raise the data difficulty and make it harder to spam the network. And as soon as I finish data difficulties, that effectively opens up send difficulties too. They're the exact same idea, the exact same algorithms, the exact same data structures. They're just named two different things and operating on two different variables. Mm-hmm. And once we get the difficulties up, it's really, to overly simplify, of course, Meros script, which is our kind of Bitcoin script alternative, which should allow atomic swaps, second layer, so on, which we've designed a lot of, actually. Gas prices, which allow merit holders to adjust the price to execute Meros script. And then there's some more work with the blockchain. But that's really going to be it for getting the protocol up to spec.
Exciting. So we may be at the eternal 2.5 months now.
I'm hoping to have Meros ready for the 1-month testnet by the end of February.
Amazing. Good stuff. Good stuff.
But I am also planning another testnet before then. It's been brought up before.
Maybe 2 months ago, I think.
Well, it's been brought up. I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Sorry. A close friend of mine suggested that we do a Meros testnet. Not the long one, not one that has all the features or the ultimate security, just a testnet. Show people there is a code base, can run a network, something being worked on, that we're not just pushing GitHub commits with random bits of junk. To actually demonstrate Meros. And something I've been thinking a lot about. And I do want to get a testnet going within the next month or so. Not one to necessarily run a bug bounty with, but just something to let people know and hopefully identify bugs with or issues.
Excellent. Okay, right. Well, Kayaba, it's been emotional as ever. I think we've touched that 40-minute mark that I was trying to avoid, funnily enough, but we made it there. Thank you again, as always, for donating your time to keep everybody up to date. As I always say, I really do appreciate your transparency. For those listening, please make sure you like and subscribe, X, Y, and Z. But also, try to jump into the Discord, get to know people, try to start getting a community vibe built. And if you also want to know more, because there are some things that we don't cover on the podcast, and if GitHub is a bit daunting for you, there is also the periodic update, which Kayaba writes, which is in Medium. I'll put the link to that in the description, as I always do, which is also well worth a read, and it may touch on other elements which I've not spotted or I've not identified. So it's well worth reading. Kayaba, if there's anything else you want to say to the millions and millions of fans, now is the time.
Just excited for the future.
Excellent. Yeah, me too. It's great to know that we're getting closer and closer. That is really the real gem that we've uncovered in this episode, so I'm really excited about that. So yeah, Kayaba, thank you very much, and to all of the listeners and viewers, we will see you again in February. Thank you very much, Kayaba.
Thank you.
This show is brought to you by PivX, private instant verified transactions. With its groundbreaking zero-coin staking and masternodes, PivX is the top privacy currency. Feel free to trade some on Binance or Bittrex. And for more information, go to www.pivx.org.